This is Melissa Dykes reporting for the Daily Sheeple. For anyone even barely paying attention, it should be pretty clear we're living in a mutated version of George Orwell's dystopic novel 1984. After Trump's senior advisor Kellyanne Conway went on NBC's Meet the Press a couple of weeks ago and told host Chuck Todd they use alternative facts.
Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office on day one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that.
Sales of Orwell's novel have gone through the roof, forcing the publisher to order a reprint just to keep up with demand.
But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative facts? Or the 5 facts he uttered were just not true. Look, alternative facts are not facts. They're falsehoods.
Here are 5 recent examples, because there are so many examples, that show the lunatics running the asylum are actually using 1984 as an instruction manual, and we're living in an Orwellian police state. Number 1, the silencing of free speech. Now that Trump is in office, the mainstream establishment media has found it trendy to actually cover the Dakota pipeline protests, something they blacked out for most of last year under President Obama. In an effort to crack down on free speech in a most Orwellian fashion, North Dakota legislators have recently introduced a bill that will not only exempt drivers from liability if they unintentionally run over someone who's protesting on a road or highway, but it will also outlaw covering one's face during protests, in a state where the average high temperature is 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below for 5 months out of the year. In other words, effectively canceling the First Amendment right to protest for 5 months out of the year. Number 2, the destruction of language is a common element in 1984, and in reality we have Google, which created a parent company for itself in 2015 disturbingly called Alphabet. The company is proving it can control language and thus thought. Recently in the current political climate, it came to everyone's attention that Google/Alphabet has actually changed the definition of the word fascism to specifically denote that it is a right-wing system of government and social organization. By contrast, if you look up the definition in other sources, such as the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, it's defined as a political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation and often race above the individual and that stands for a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition, and makes no specific mention of right or left wing, because both sides are clearly capable of fascism. Despite being a huge search engine platform used by billions of people, Google is obviously biased, as the company has even been caught along with Facebook conspiring to censor the alternative media. In addition, some would argue that forcible suppression of the opposition is coming more out of the left than the right these days, with everything from left-wing protesters shutting down Milo's ability to speak at Berkeley, to liberal protesters calling on police to commit violent acts against Trump supporters simply because they disagree with her. Seems like Google's new definition is just more
alternative facts.
Number 3, our modern police state is so technologically advanced at this point that cops can use a man's pacemaker to track and charge him with a crime. Speaking of biometrics, tucked in one of Donald Trump's first executive orders on immigration is an item directing the Secretary of Homeland Security to fast-track the biometric entry-exit system for everyone. It reads, "The Secretary of Homeland Security shall expedite the completion and implementation of a biometric entry-exit tracking system for all travelers to the United States." In other words, in freedom is slavery fashion, none of us will be able to leave the country or come home to it without offering up our biometric information to our government. Number 4, not only has our government institutionalized indefinite detention without charge or trial, but torture, which the Trump administration reportedly plans to expand. According to reports, Trump administration is working on a draft executive order to not only make sure Guantanamo Bay stays open, but to actually expand it. A place nightmares are made of that's notorious for its use of everything from waterboarding to isolation and sleep deprivation to a torture chair for force feedings.
Sensory deprivation, religious humiliation, and severe physical pain.
Why not? Trump has filled his administration with people who claim to believe the fallacy that torture actually works.
President Trump's first interview on ABC News, he said he believed that waterboarding and other forms of torture are effective.
When ISIS is doing things that nobody has ever heard of since medieval times, would I feel strongly about waterboarding? As far as I'm concerned, we have to fight fire with fire.
And number 5, in true Ministry of Truth fashion, our government has been caught spending hundreds of millions on fake war propaganda videos and lying to the public by concealing thousands of unconstitutional preemptive drone strikes from us in what has been designed to be a never-ending war on terror. In true doublespeak fashion, one of the first tweets that Donald Trump sent out admonished senators for always trying to start World War III, right before he put Iran on notice and slapped the country with fresh sanctions and basically hinted that we're going to be at war with Iran very soon, while in the background his UN ambassador used her inaugural speech to condemn Russia, and his chief strategist Steve Bannon claimed we'd be at war with China within the next decade, all of which sounds exactly like World War III. Worst of all, supposedly liberty-loving patriots are now cheering this stuff on. If you stand back and really look at it, the system wants us to believe that strength is ignorance, and our slavery is our freedom, and the only way for us to have peace is through more war. 1984 isn't our dystopic future, ladies and gentlemen. It's our dystopic present.